As we near closer and closer to free agency commencing officially on July 1st, and I say officially in quotes because we all know teams tamper and talk before that time, but as we get closer to July 1st, the talk around Zach Lavine and his free agency decision continues to heat up, as do all of the ridiculous narratives, rumors, speculation, and of course trade proposals. And I mentioned a couple weeks ago I would be putting together a video on all of the awful trade proposals I've seen come across Twitter, YouTube, national media pundits, Bulls Reddit, really anywhere. And I also asked you guys to send me some of your worst ones that you had seen on Twitter, so appreciate all of you for sending those in response, and that includes some of those here, which by the way, feel free to give me a follow on Twitter at BullsCentralYT. You can also find a link to that in the description. But anyway, let's get into some of these ridiculous trade proposals. So what's going on, everyone? You were listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Really quick, I do not do this often as I don't like doing it when content creators do it for every single video they put out, but since it's been a while, friendly reminder, if you've been watching the content and you've been enjoying it, feel free to subscribe, as about 40% of you watching are not subscribed to the channel. That way you don't miss an episode, regardless of how YouTube tunes its algorithm, and it would mean a great deal to me as well. Of course, I appreciate all of you for your continued support, even during this time while I'm not uploading as frequently because of my newborn child. But anyway, I'm going to start with the trade proposal that really sparked this video idea, and that was the hypothetical three-team trade that was proposed by ESPN's Jay Williams. Jay Williams being the former Bull, former number 2 overall pick that played one season before getting in a motorcycle accident that ended his career. But that three-team trade is between the Lakers, Knicks, and the Bulls, where the Lakers would get Zach Lavine, of course. The Knicks would get Russell Westbrook, 2 first-round picks, although it doesn't specify which team is actually sending the first-round picks. My guess is one would be from the Bulls, the other would be from the Lakers, since you cannot actually trade first-round picks in consecutive years. And then the Bulls would get Julius Randle and Evan Fournier. Julius Randle and Evan Fournier. Not only would the Bulls have to give up Zach Lavine for this, but also a first-round pick. What's funny is that I usually think Jay Williams is a pretty level-headed guy. He's generally one of the more reasonable analysts on ESPN, and what's odd is that in a separate podcast, he was really backing the idea of the Bulls needing to max Lavine. How Lavine is an incredible player and that the Bulls would be stupid to let him go, yet here he is with the trade proposal that would be so stupid that if it was done, Arturas and Mark Eversley should be fired on the spot. Now, I'm sure to the casual fan, you might say, well, this isn't that bad. The Bulls need a big, more specifically a 4. Julius Randle is a star player and a 4. He was even an All-NBA player last season, which was BS in and of itself that he was second-team All-NBA last year, but we'll leave that there. Like, what's the problem here? Zach Lavine is more or less on the same level as Randle in terms of stardom, and you get Evan Fournier, a good role player. Like, no, do people not watch basketball? Did people not see Julius Randle this past season? Dude looked like a shell of himself compared to the season prior. The Knicks were god-awful after making the playoffs last year. Randle didn't look engaged, was disinterested most nights, wasn't that aggressive on offense, and his jumper completely fell off. He went from shooting 41% from 3 last year to 30%. Shot 41% from the field, and on top of that, the Knicks signed him to this massive contract extension where they're going to be paying him all the way through 2026, at which point he'll be making close to $30 million. No. Teams do not want Julius Randle. This would not make the Bulls better, especially if they're losing Zach Lavine. Evan Fournier is also not the player he once was. He's also going to be 30 years old. This is just a horrible trade proposal that really only benefits the Lakers. Even the Knicks are kind of screwed here with having to take on Westbrook and his contract, although I say that, but Westbrook's contract is expiring while they would be getting Randle off of the books. The next one we've got, of course, the obligatory Lavine for Westbrook trade. At least this one included a first-round pick for the Bulls. I've seen some that are just straight Lavine for Westbrook trades, but this is still god-awful even with the first-round pick. I don't even need to go into details on why this one is bad. You're talking about trading away a star player who is in his prime, only 27 years old, who can actually shoot the ball well, for a player that is clearly past his prime, that always tries to do too much, a player who relied so much on his athleticism throughout his career, and now that's fading. There isn't a great deal of production as we once used to see from Westbrook. And above all, a guy who has so little self-awareness that can't see the flaws in his game and can't hold himself accountable for his poor play on the court. Why would the Bulls ever do this, especially knowing the Lakers are desperate if they want to try to trade Westbrook? knowing there are only so many avenues to actually trade him to match salaries with his contract throughout the league. Teams know they can get Westbrook for pennies on the dollar with how little leverage the Lakers have. And you're going to send them your prime all-star player? Come on now, use some common sense, please. Next, I saw this one. Of course, Spurs have been going nuts thinking that they're getting Lavine because of a social media post from DeJounte Murray, which had Lavine photoshopped in the jersey that you see here. So naturally, you're going to see some sign and trade proposals from the Spurs in this one. You have Zach going to the Spurs for 5 years, $175 million, which first of all, cannot be done since the most other teams can offer outside of the Bulls is a 4-year, $157 million deal. Yes, that's even in the event of a sign and trade. I said before, there is this misconception that Zach can still get the 5-year max if it is done via a sign and trade. That actually cannot happen. He is unable to get the 5th year if he is moved in a sign and trade. And that's why when I hear people say Zach has all the leverage in this contract extension with the Bulls, well, yes, he does have a lot of leverage. The Bulls have a lot in their favor as well, given Zach would be leaving big money on the table if he goes to another team, whether he demands a sign and trade or just signs with another team outright. The most money he can get is with the Chicago Bulls, period. So bear that in mind. But because of that, that's what makes this trade dumb already, because they don't even have the figures correct. Second, Josh Richardson, Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, and 2 first-round picks. I mean, here's the thing. In theory, this isn't a bad trade. Like, it's not a bad haul for a guy like Zach Lavine because you're getting a lot of young talent. I actually really like Keldon Johnson. You're also getting 2 first-round picks, which the Bulls need, given they've traded away most of their future firsts. And keep in mind, the Bulls had to give up 2 first-round picks and Wendell Carter Jr. to get Vucevic, who was an all-star at the time. So you're getting a good amount in return for someone who is a star, but you're not looking at the direction of the team, really both teams. The team that just brought in DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, Vucevic last year at the trade deadline, this team made moves to go from rebuild to win now. This trade effectively would be putting their timeline back into rebuild after having just made all of those moves last offseason. And for the Spurs, that team is rebuilding. They have a lot of young talent, and you're going to give up a lot of assets to get Zach Lavine. It doesn't make sense based on the direction of either of these teams. And even though, yes, it is a good haul for Zach, mainly because you're including 2 first-round picks, it's still not enough and also just not worth it unless the plan is to just blow it all up and completely go into full rebuild. Trade Vucevic, trade DeMar, which there's just no logic to that at all. This one is also from the same Mock Trades Instagram account, which I guess I shouldn't expect much. Like, this is probably some random NBA fan who doesn't understand the salary cap, but this one is especially bad that I'm not even going to spend too much time on it. The Bulls would send Zach to the Cavs for Caris LeVert and Kevin Love. In what world would this ever make sense for the Bulls? Don't get me wrong, Caris LeVert is a solid player, but he's not on Zach Lavine's level, and that's really what you're getting in this trade, because Kevin Love has been on the decline for a while now. Another injury-prone player. He's going to be 34 next season, so essentially you're exchanging Caris LeVert for Lavine since Kevin Love wouldn't be a part of your long-term plan. No, this is a terrible trade. Then I received this one as a response to my Twitter post. Apparently, Shannon Sharp proposed Westbrook, THT, Terrence Horton Tucker, and a first for Zach. I didn't see this one, but I'm not surprised given Shannon Sharp loves LeBron James. Again, no one wants Westbrook. I don't care if it's an expiring deal. No one wants Russell Westbrook on their team at this stage in his career. And throwing in Talen Horton-Tucker and a first to say thanks for taking Westbrook off our hands, and in exchange for all that, you also gave us Zach Lavine. Like, the NBA is not gifting the Lakers anything, okay? Not sure where this one came from, as it was another response to my post on Twitter, but I'm sure this is coming about because of the supposed rumors that the Hawks could be linked and on the hunt for Zach Lavine this summer. But in this instance, the Bulls would get John Collins, DeLon Wright, Kevin Huerter, and their first-round pick for this upcoming draft, which is the 16th pick, while the Bulls would send Zach Lavine, Alex Caruso, and their 2028 first-round pick. I mean, come on now. This trade wasn't even fair with just Zach Lavine. Now you're adding in Caruso and a first-round pick. John Collins is a nice player. He's actually someone the Bulls could use at his position. He's on a sizable contract, though. Kevin Huerter, a good shooter. The Bulls need shooting, but again, these just aren't the types of packages that even come close to enticing a team to give up one of their star players, especially when you throw in Alex Caruso into the mix. I saw this one from hoopshabit.com, which included the Denver Nuggets. The Bulls would get Will Barton, Monte Morris, and a 2024 first for Zach Lavine. Do people really view Zach Lavine's trade value to be this low? And look, this is coming from someone who isn't as high as most Bulls fans are on Zach Lavine and a little skeptical on offering him a max contract. But come on now, this is still an NBA All-Star. Like, in what universe does a team trade an all-star player in the peak of his prime for Will Barton, Monte Morris, and a first? Sure, this makes a ton of sense for the Nuggets to go all in to make Jokic happy, and with Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray coming back, this puts them in a good position for contention for next season, but this sets the Bulls back drastically. And then finally we have this one, which I honestly don't even know how these trades go through the trade machine on ESPN. The Bulls are sending to the Lakers Alex Caruso, Tony Bradley, Coby White, and Zach Lavine for Westbrook and 2 first-round picks in 2026 and 2028. Just dumb. No GM in their right mind would ever agree to this. This is even worse than last one, considering how many assets you're throwing into the mix, which the Bulls know they can get plenty more for. And again, Acme are not dumb to be taking on Westbrook's contract when the Lakers have such little leverage to move him. Like I always say, exercising common sense when putting together trade packages. You always have to think about how this will benefit both teams. I've even said that to Bulls fans who put together ridiculous trade packages that are drastically in favor for the Bulls. But that's what makes these trade proposals particularly egregious, because these all put the Bulls at an extreme disadvantage, as if the Bulls have no leverage whatsoever when it comes to Zach Lavine's free agency for the reasons I mentioned earlier. I am thinking about putting together a video on trades that I actually think would be intriguing in the event Zach Lavine does force a sign and trade this offseason, or says that he's not happy and doesn't want to stay in Chicago. Again, a very unlikely scenario, but it is also fun to think about what packages would actually make sense for the Bulls if they are put into a situation where they would have to execute a sign and trade. So let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing something like that. Until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.